Chapter 3. You're not taking this very well. Connor rested his elbow on the open window and relaxed his other hand on the steering wheel. How should I take it? Jump for joy? Martha banged her head against the seat and closed her eyes. I can't believe it. 2 days here and the magazine needs him on assignment? He's very excited about it. Of course he is. Sally's going with him, and they'll have a fine vacation. Honeymoon, Connor corrected. We're the ones who get the vacation. From what? Martha grumbled. Mom's cooking. Martha glanced at him, almost wanting to laugh, but too upset to give him the satisfaction. Instead, she slumped even lower in her seat, her mind in a dark, ugly whirl. She hadn't told anyone about what had happened to her last night. By the time she'd raced back to the house, the phone call had come, and Dad had been too ecstatic to listen to anything, and she'd shut herself in her room to cry. How could Dad and Sally even think about taking a honeymoon now, even if Dad was on assignment in Hawaii? How could they even think of leaving her alone in that creepy old house with Connor and some horrible thing running loose in the woods? I'll never forgive them. I'll meet you back here in the car after school, Connor said, and Martha sat up with a start, surprised that they were already in the student lot. The school looked quaint and comfortable and small, Martha thought, but as she scanned the groups of kids hurrying across campus, she felt sick. You should have eaten something, Connor was looking at her, and Martha shoved herself out onto the pavement. I'm fine. I don't need you to worry about me. I know, that hint of a smile again. You don't need anybody. Martha bit her lip and followed him into the first brick building, down a wide, noisy hall, and into an office. Before she could even think what to do, Connor had spoken to a secretary, and within minutes she found herself in an even tinier office, facing her new advisor across a cluttered desk. Martha Stevenson, I'm Greg Chambers. Mr. Chambers in the halls and in class, but Greg's fine in here. Welcome to Bedford High. As Martha felt her hand enclosed in his warm grasp, she tried not to stare. Not only was Greg Chambers boyishly handsome, but she also had the feeling they'd met before. I know things are going to be all new and different for you here and at home. As she glanced up, a smile broke his perfectly tanned face. Your stepmother's been to see me and explain the situation, of course. It's rough, I know. I come from a broken home myself, so give yourself time and permission. Feel all the things you want to feel, and they'll be easier to handle if you do. He spoke so casually that Martha felt herself relaxing. She nodded, allowing herself a long, hard assessment as he flipped through a folder. He couldn't have been that old, she told herself, maybe mid to late 20s, with dark hair and eyes and a tall, well-built frame. She fixed her eyes on the back of his head and frowned. Someone, he reminds me of someone. Blake, she burst out. Blake Chambers. He spun around, startled. You know Blake? No, I met him in the hardware store yesterday. Well, I knew Blake worked fast, but hey, don't look at me like that. I'm kidding. He's my cousin, the famous one. Famous? Oh, so you really haven't gotten the whole charm treatment, huh? Greg chuckled and slid back down into his chair. Athlete extraordinaire, leading scorer on the basketball team, top high jumper in the state? Of course, I am prejudiced. Not to mention extremely jealous. Martha laughed at that. Did you go to school here? Where else? Greg leaned back in his chair, waving his arms in an inclusive gesture. I loved it here. Loved the town. Still do. He gazed at her, noting how her expression fell. Then he bent forward. Give it a chance, Martha. It's not the big city, but it's got its own kind of charm, its own kind of excitement. We're all here to help you, especially me. Martha nodded grudgingly, forcing a smile. Okay, now let's decide where to put you. I hear you're quite the writer. Awards and state competition, yearbook, school paper. In spite of herself, Martha smiled. They were just little awards. I have a lot to learn. Great, then let's start with my creative writing class. I'm pretty fascinating. Martha couldn't help laughing. Do I have to try out? With your qualifications? Are you kidding? Hey, don't look so worried. You'll love it. He was right. And as the day wore on, that class turned out to be the only thing Martha did love. Sitting through each new hour was torturous. She could feel all the kids staring at her with an unabashed curiosity. At lunchtime, no one asked her to eat with them, but she could see heads together and fingers pointing as they talked about her. She didn't see Connor all day, and by the time school was finally over, she felt so lonely that even he was beginning to sound good to her. I'm a sick person, she mumbled to herself, and didn't realize that someone had come up beside her locker. Hi. Hi, remember me? I saw you in the store yesterday. The girl was smiling shyly, peering at Martha over an armload of books. Martha smiled back at her, amused. Even if she hadn't remembered, the girl's uncanny resemblance to Blake and Greg Chambers was a dead giveaway. We have a writing class together, the girl went on hesitantly. I tried to get your attention, but you were a million miles away. Oh, sorry, Martha stammered. I'm kind of in a fog today, I guess. I would be too, in fact. I'd be even worse. The girl nodded solemnly, then offered another smile. I'm Win Chambers. In spite of her weariness, Martha laughed. How many more of them of you are there around here? For a moment, Win looked confused, and Martha laughed again. Besides you and Blake and my new advisor. This time, Win laughed too, tossing back her long brown hair with a shake of her head. Is Greg your advisor? I'm glad. You'll like him. She was tall like her cousins, with the same quick, wide smile and the same merry brown eyes. I like him already. In fact, he was the high point of my day. Oh, that bad, huh? Win looked sympathetic, just like she truly understood. A group of girls jostled past, calling her name. She waved and turned back to Martha. Isn't Bedford what you expected? Well, Martha stared for a moment into her locker, taking a quick inventory of what she'd need for homework. To tell the truth, I didn't even know I was coming here, so I didn't know what to expect. I just woke up one morning and found out everything had changed. That would make me sad. Win looked down at the floor, nodding her head. I don't like changes. Changes are scary. Martha stared at her a moment and then smiled. You're right, it really is scary. She closed her locker and swung her purse to the other shoulder. Do you live in town here in town? 4 blocks from here. Blake lives another block from me, and Greg's mom still lives in the house behind that. Uh-oh, what happened to poor Greg? Win giggled. He has an apartment on the other side of town. Do you have brothers and sisters? Martha shook her head, giving a wry smile. I didn't, but now I have this weird stepbrother named Connor. He's going to school here, too. Win glanced, her eyes widening. Connor? The Connor you were with at the store? Yeah, that's him. Why? I can't believe he's your brother. Win was suddenly looking shy again. Stepbrother? You haven't noticed how everyone's been lusting after him? Lusting after Connor? Martha fell into step beside her. Well, they have. All the girls have. Win flushed slightly and added, heads have been turning ever since he got here, like the domino effect. Every time he walks down the hall, they haven't been able to keep their eyes off of him. Connor? Martha groaned and shoved the door open, glad to be outside at last. Leave it to Connor, she thought dismally. I get treated like the plague victim, and all the girls in school have fallen in love with him. But he seems kind of different, doesn't he? Win chose her words cautiously. He's different, all right. He hardly looks at anyone. I bet he doesn't even know how all the girls are staring. He knows, Martha shot her a look, and they turned out of the gate to the parking lot. There's Connor now. Do you want me to officially... Oh, please, let me introduce you to the hottest new sex symbol at Bedford High. Win stopped, clutching her books to her chest. I should be getting home. She's nervous about meeting Connor, about actually seeing him up close again, face to face. Come on, Martha encouraged. I know he'll remember you from yesterday. You could come to my house and we could... No! Win shook her head, looking embarrassed. Maybe another time. Well, sure, whatever you want. Hey, Win, Martha, wait up, will you? Martha felt her heart skip as Blake Chambers came running towards them from the gym, his body long and leanly muscled and his hair still damp from the showers. He caught Win in a huge hug, nearly knocking her down, and fixed his eyes on Martha with a grin. Knowing you survived the first day without too many battle scars? Barely. Martha's pulse quickened as he came over and took 3 of her books, his arm brushing hers as he leafed through the pages. I seem to remember all this horrible stuff. Don't tell me you like Poe. It doesn't matter whether we like him or not. We still have to read him, Win sighed. But guess what? Martha's in Greg's writing class with me. Great, so what are you writing? Typical Greg. He gave us some corny assignment for Halloween. And speak of the devil, come on, let's catch a ride. See you later, huh, Martha? As Blake loped off, Win glanced open-mouthed at Martha, and then both girls began to laugh. He's not always this rude, Win apologized. Greg must be in a hurry. Greg? Yeah, see, over there. The red Jaguar? Martha squinted against the crisp breeze. I can't believe how much alike Blake and Greg look. You too, for that matter. It's just 'cause I'm tall, Win said ruefully. I hate being tall. No one asks you out when you're tall, she shrugged. Everybody says we look alike, Blake and Greg especially. They almost look like brothers. From a distance, they could be twins. They were almost to the station wagon now. Martha could see Connor inside, and she stopped, wondering if Wynn would change her mind about saying hello. "I'll see you tomorrow," Wynn stopped abruptly, tugging her sweater around her. "It'll get better. Just think, your first day's over and you're not new anymore." "That's easy for you to say," Martha chuckled. "I'm stuck right in the middle of every class, and I have tons to catch up on. Even our writing assignment sounds hard." Wynn looked surprised. "What? Writing a ghost story for Halloween? That shouldn't be any problem, especially for you." Martha was doubtful. "Just 'cause my dad's a writer, that doesn't mean any of his talent rubbed off on me." "Your father's a writer? I didn't know that." "You didn't? I thought that's what you meant." "I didn't know about your father," Wynn said. "I was talking about, well, you know, about your house." Martha stared at her. Something about the way Wynn was looking back at her made her uneasy. "Well, what? Well, what about my house?" "Hey, Wynn," Blake yelled. The Jaguar was moving slowly towards them, and Blake was hanging out the window. "Hurry up, Greg's got a meeting." Wynn wasn't even listening to him. Her expression was on Martha, and it looked suddenly strained. "You really don't know, do you? Nobody told you?" Martha shook her head. "Are you talking about the old cemetery?" And Wynn was looking so strange, sort of sad and sympathetic at the same time. And Martha took a step back, not wanting to hear her anymore. "There was a murder in your house," Wynn said quietly. "Everyone knows the old Pedford place is evil."